All right, listen. A 6-year-old girl walked barefoot into my glass office and asked me for a job, and I swear the room got smaller. Have you ever had a stranger say something so simple it slices straight through your armor and leaves you blinking at your own reflection? Like, who am I really? If it were you, what would you have done? It was a Monday morning, the kind of morning cities brag about in magazines. Bright sidewalks, coffee, and fresh bread mingling with perfume heels, tapping doors, hissing people gliding like they knew exactly where they were going and exactly who they were. Williams Tower sat in the sun like a razor, and I sat at the top of it signing papers with a pen that cost more than most folks' rent. That's who I was then. The efficient version of a man, the one who traded sleep for deals and warmth for results. The one who could look out from floor to ceiling glass and make entire neighborhoods feel small. Cold, some would say. Focused, I'd correct. That morning I believed that. Then security called. That tone men use when they want their problem to become your problem. Boss, there's a kid in the lobby. Bare feet, torn dress. Says she isn't here to beg. Says she wants a job. I capped my pen, the click louder than I expected. Protocol said, remove. My first instinct said, not now. But curiosity, that old troublemaker, said, wait. Lizzie, my secretary with the soft heart and sharper brain, went down first. She knelt. She asked a name. The child whispered Rachel. She said her mommy was sick. The clinic threatened to send her away if they didn't pay today. She said she didn't want to beg, she wanted to work. Clean shoes, sweep floors, carry things, anything. When they stepped into my office, the whole space changed temperature. Rachel didn't wander past the carpet line, didn't stare at the glass trophies or the watch on my wrist. She stood with her feet pressed together like she knew this place was not designed for children, not designed for anyone who couldn't afford the elevator ride. Her eyes were red from crying, her lip cracked like desert clay, but her hands didn't shake when she lifted that piece of paper. A drawing done in stubborn crayon, a tiny girl handing a flower to a tall man, and under it in careful letters that tried so hard to be perfect, please let me work. My mommy is dying. I will help. You think you know yourself. Your pressure points, your steel plates, your lines. You do not cross. Then a kid with dust on her ankles shows you the door in your chest you swore you welded shut. I stood up, walked around my desk like it was a cliff edge, and knelt to her height. Who are you? Rachel, she said. 6. Daddy is gone. Mommy is sick. I can wash, sweep, run errands. Please don't let my mommy die. There are moments a man decides, and there are moments a man is decided. This was the second one. Come, I said. Lizzie's hand flew to her mouth. The staff outside pretended not to stare and failed. I took the girl's hand. It was so small it disappeared in my palm, and we walked out past reception, past whispers that trailed us like smoke. The driver looked at me in the mirror with that "is this real" expression. Hospital, I said, and the car peeled away from money and glass and slid into the part of the city where the skirts of buildings are frayed and the billboards have an extra layer of dust no one budgets to clean. In the back seat, Rachel held her drawing like it was legal tender. She kept looking at me, not the way people look at a rich man, not calculating, just measuring the way kids measure danger or rescue without knowing the math. Sir, do you really want to help my mommy? What is her name? I asked. Mabel, she said. She is my mommy and my best friend. She never complains, even when she cries. You know that feeling when a smile starts in your chest and surprises your face like a muscle you forgot you had, like soap bubbles popping in a quiet room? That happened to me. I nodded, and looked out at a city that suddenly looked like it had been waiting for this exact drive. The clinic had walls that peeled in thin curls and a smell of cheap bleach and tired bodies. A nurse saw Rachel and stiffened. "You again." I stepped in calm but sharp, the sound you make when you're done asking. "How much is the bill?" She blinked, recalibrated quickly like people do when they realize the power dynamic just changed. 150,000 for treatment, 50 for past due. "Send me the account now," I said. "Move her to a private ward, call your best doctor, 5 minutes." The nurse swallowed and went from thorn to thread. Rachel tugged my sleeve. "Sir, are you an angel?" "No," I said, and for once my voice didn't sound like a conference call. It sounded like a person. "Maybe you are. Now don't get comfortable." It would be too easy to say money walked in and fixed everything. Money moved the bed, paid the bill, changed the tone of the hallway. But it didn't answer the question I had been avoiding for years, the one that still had my name on it in ink that doesn't fade. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. While Mabel was moved to a cleaner room with new sheets that felt like the second day of a promise, I sat by the window and watched Rachel feed her mother soup. Small spoon, steady hand, big care. Lizzie showed up with a pink dress and white shoes, and Rachel pressed the box to her chest like it was made of warm light. Before I left for an emergency board call, I set a brown envelope by the bed without ceremony. I felt allergic to ceremony in that moment, enough to quiet the wolves. Rachel looked up and asked if she could still work for me. Why, I asked. "Because I don't want to owe anyone," she said. "And because you helped us, I want to help you, even if it's just sweeping your floor." Dignity in a 6-year-old's voice is heavy. It weighs more than a bonus check. It rearranged something old and brittle inside me. The next morning, I walked her through the glittering lobby, not behind me, beside me. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, phones paused mid-scroll. I raised my voice just enough to carry, "This is Rachel, my special assistant. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me." "Yeah," I heard the gasps. Power makes rules quietly. This time I made one out loud. In my office, we set up a little table by the window. Crayons, paper, a cup with her name painted in gold letters that wobbled because I hadn't written a child's name in years, and my hand reminded me. She colored while I negotiated decimal points and deadlines. She didn't chatter much. She watched with those sharp eyes, the kind that see the thing under the thing. In a meeting with foreign partners, she walked to a visitor and whispered, "Your shirt is dirty at the back." He froze, then laughed, and somehow we all did. "Rachel has sharp eyes," I said, and for the first time in months, I heard my own laughter and believed it. That kind of light always casts a shadow. Whisper networks hummed the jealous and the confused, shaking hands in dim corners. Raymond, one of my senior managers, caught Lizzie by the elbow. "Why is the boss turning a street child into an employee?" Lizzie, God bless the spine on that woman, looked him straight in his tidy ambition and said, "Because that child has more heart than some of us." Meanwhile, at the clinic, nurses who had barked yesterday softened. Mabel sat up, spooned broth into herself, and smiled the kind of smile that looks like the sun is just now remembering your street. And then there was Cynthia. If you like neat categories, hero-villain, she's going to annoy you. She's brilliant, disciplined, the kind of executive who makes money look easy and loyalty look expensive. 5 years, shoulder-to-shoulder planes at midnight, coffee like medicine deals that tasted like metal. She never asked for anything I couldn't give. She wanted what I did not have to offer. Attention, maybe more. She walked past my glass door that morning and saw me with Rachel on my lap, both of us bent over a drawing of a stick man with ridiculous hair and a tiny girl with a huge flower. Something in her face cracked and turned sharp. She pushed the door open too hard. "What is this girl doing here, Jaden?" "She's not this girl," I said. "She's Rachel." "Why is a child on your lap during work hours?" "This is not a playground." Rachel slid off me quiet, clutching her crayon box like a flotation device. "Cynthia," I said, "I don't want to hear you speak about her like that again." She laughed, brittle. "I brought you success for years, and you never smiled like this. You think I didn't feel the accusation land?" "I did." "Do you think that's fair? If it were you, what would you have said?" I asked her to leave. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The internet is a fire that pretends to be a lamp. By noon, the headline was on a tablet in my hand, shoved there by a pale Lizzie, whose voice shook when she said, "Sir, you need to see this. Exposed. Billionaire CEO takes in a fake child. Abandoned orphan found behind warehouse. Not real daughter of sick woman." Photos grainy and invasive of Rachel feeding soup to Mabel faces turned into evidence. Tenderness turned into a lie. The words were worse. Sympathy scam street girl manipulates CEO cleaner without legal rights. I felt heat in my ears, the old ugly kind that makes you want to break things so they stop breaking you. Rachel peered up at me. "What's wrong?" I put the tablet down like it might bite. "Call my lawyer," I told Lizzie. "Send security to the clinic quietly. No one is going to use this child's past to destroy her future, not while I'm breathing." You can guess what I did next. I walked to Cynthia's office the way you walk to a line you never thought you'd have to draw twice. The door slammed against the wall. She jumped, then arranged her face into innocence so fast it felt rehearsed. "Did you do this?" She said something about reputation, stakeholders, optics. I said something about dignity lines, children. She said the girl isn't even the woman's real daughter. She found her on the street like that, stripped the love off the story, and left a stain. My fist hit the desk before I even knew I was moving. "Don't you ever call that girl a mistake again." We glared across the ruined seconds. And still, I didn't know the whole truth. That evening I drove alone, no driver, no convoy, just me, and a thought that wouldn't unclench. The road narrowed and grew dusty, the houses closer together, the stories louder even when no one spoke. Mabel's door was the color of attempts painted once and then left to weather. Inside, a fan clicked like it was counting to 3 and starting over. Soup steamed. Rachel danced with a plastic spoon, singing nothing words that sounded like a prayer skipping. Mabel tried to stand. "Sit," I said gently. "I need to ask you a question, and I want the truth." She nodded, hands twisting the hem of something threadbare and clean. "Is she your biological daughter?" Silence. The fan clicked to 4. Mabel's voice was soft when it came. "No. I found her behind a warehouse 6 years ago. There was a letter pinned to her blanket. She said she read it to me like a confession, like she had memorized every line because that's what people do when guilt and love share a bed. The letter was from a mother who said she was sick, who got pregnant from a one-night mistake at Royal Preston Club, who couldn't feed herself, who left a child, and begged the finder to raise her well to forgive her. Royal Preston. If you've ever heard a name so loud, it drowns the current moment. You know what I felt. Years back, a deal I should have walked away from, friends who celebrated too hard a drink that felt wrong, a morning I don't like to remember, a woman sleeping beside me I never saw again. A shame I filed under forget. You know what I mean. Minds are professional cleaners. They steam and scrub and bleach until the floor looks new. Then one word blows dust back into the room, and you see the outline of everything you thought you erased. I said I need a DNA test. Mabel stared at me like the ceiling had lowered. Rachel stared like I had spoken in a language she almost understood. 2 days later, an envelope lay on my desk like a mouth with secrets. My hands shook. I opened it. Paternity match, 99.98%. The body does strange things when the truth lands. My knees forgot their job. My chest burned and cooled at the same time. My daughter. Not charity, not symbol, not lesson. Mine. I drove to Mabel's place and didn't remember the route later. Rachel saw my car and ran toward it like children do when they trust the world again. "Sir," she said, but I was already on my knees. "Rachel," I said, my voice doing that ugly, beautiful thing grief and joy do when they show up together. "I'm not just your boss. I'm your father." She blinked fast like a camera shutter learning speed. "You're my daddy." "Yes," I said, "yes, my princess. I didn't know, but I do now, and I'm never leaving you again." She threw herself into my arms with a force adults forget is possible, the kind of force that rewires you. Mabel stood in the doorway with her hand over her mouth and tears running in one straight river. "You saved her," I told her. "You are family." She nodded, or maybe she bowed, or maybe she just finally set down a weight she had carried for 6 years. Everything changed. Not my title, not my bank account. Those are props. The way air touched my lungs changed. The way my own name sounded in a child's mouth changed. We moved Mabel into my estate, a modest house with a door she could lock without worrying it would stick. I handed her keys and a job at our foundation that fit her like the dress she wore on her first day. A little stiff around the shoulders, but beautiful. We enrolled Rachel in a school where the morning assemblies looked like snapshots of tomorrow's headlines. She walked in wearing shiny black shoes and a uniform with stripes, and carried a backpack stitched with her new name in gold thread, Rachel Williams. She came home that afternoon, buzzing about a lost pencil, a shared snack, a math problem she solved on the board, while her hands shook and I listened like a man who has been thirsty for years and finally found simple water. I also called a company-wide meeting. Every floor, every department, 10 a.m. conference hall. The media tried to get in. I said no. I wasn't speaking to the city. I was speaking to my house. I walked in holding Rachel's hand, not because I needed the optics, but because that's where my hand belonged. Lizzie stood behind us, dabbing at the corner of her eye, pretending she wasn't. I took the microphone, and it didn't feel like power. It felt like truth with a cord attached. I said, "You met this little girl a few days ago. She came here with nothing but courage and a pure heart. I thought I was helping her. Turns out she was sent to heal me. Rachel is not just my guest. She's my daughter, my biological child." The room exhaled and then inhaled and then forgot how to do either for a second. Applause rose and fell like a wave across a shore I didn't know I owned. In the corner, Cynthia sat still, an expression on her face I had only ever seen in mirrors. She came to my office later, eyes rimmed red from a fight with herself. "I'm sorry," she said, and it sounded like she meant it. "Jealousy made me cruel. I hurt a child. I was wrong." Then she did a thing I didn't expect. She turned to Rachel, kneeled, and asked forgiveness. Rachel looked at me. I nodded because I have learned the hard way that the only way out of some disasters is through a door called mercy. My little girl wrapped her arms around a woman who had tried to weaponize truth and whispered, "It's okay, we can be friends." That line knocked something sideways in me. Leadership is not a tone of voice, it's the posture you teach your people with your own choices. Life softened around the edges the way bread turns to toast in the right light. We started collecting quiet moments, breakfast that tasted like mornings instead of meetings, car rides with a soundtrack of nonsense songs that somehow healed parts of me I thought were scabbed over late afternoons, where Mabel and I sat with grant applications and tea and the kind of talk that builds bridges slowly and on purpose. She ran the new child welfare program with a gentleness that couldn't be faked, a toughness that didn't look like toughness until it had to. You can't hire that. You can only recognize it and get out of its way. One night, I took them to a rooftop restaurant called Luna Sky. The city looked like a spread of gold coins below us. Rachel wore a yellow dress and white shoes that flashed when she walked. Mabel wore peach and looked like peace wore a dress. "You look amazing," I told her, voice low, because suddenly everything felt better at low volume. "Don't call me sir tonight," she said, and I laughed, surprised at how ready I was to obey. We took a photo on the balcony, 3 faces in a frame that had been empty for too long. Later, back in the car, Rachel fell asleep on her backpack, mouth open a little, the way kids do when the day used them up in all the best ways. In the quiet, Mabel and I talked the way people talk when they take turns holding the heavy thing between them, and neither drops it. "You brought light back into my life," I said. "You and Rachel brought light into mine," she answered, and we both looked away at the same time because sometimes looking directly at joy is too bright. Weeks turned into months. Rachel started leaving little notes on my desk, drawings of stick families and big hearts and a dog she promised we'd get if I stopped saying "we'll see." She also started asking harder questions. "Daddy, were you always so serious? Daddy, why did you stop laughing? Daddy, did I make you softer? Or did I just point at the softness you hid?" You know what I mean. Kids hold mirrors that don't lie. I knew what I wanted. I called Rachel into my study one evening. "Planning something special," I said. For who she grinned. "Your mommy. Are you going to buy her a car?" "Better," I said. "A house." She tilted her head, squinted, then gasped. "A ring." "Yes." She clapped so hard she scared the dog we still didn't have. "You'll do more than help," I said. "You'll be the one to give it to her." We kept the proposal small. Candles, dinner music that sounded like breathing done right. After we ate, I stood, took Mabel's hand, and said words I didn't read off a card, because they were written somewhere deeper. "The day you walked into my life, everything changed. You gave me back my daughter, my smile, my peace." Rachel stepped forward with a red box like it contained the moon, and I asked what I already knew. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she said, tears and laughter arguing on her face while her hands said absolutely. Rachel hugged our legs and declared, "Now we are a real family." I kissed Mabel's forehead and said we always were, but now the paperwork can catch up. You'd think that's where it wraps with a bow, right? It doesn't. Because life keeps receipts and people keep opinions. The retired midwife from the clinic surfaced in a reporter's piece confirming the letter, adding a detail that stuck to my ribs. A week after the baby was found, a woman hovered near the door and cried, too scared to step inside. Left a second note that the clinic lost in a drawer. She said she'd come back when she had a job when shame was smaller. She never did. We never found her. That night, I held my sleeping daughter and prayed for a woman I had once tried to forget. A woman who did one wrong thing and one right thing in a single hour, and paid for both with a lifetime of maybe. Now let's talk about the part that makes some of you breathe fire in the comments. What do we owe the truth when the truth wounds a child? What do we owe the law when love has already done the paperwork of the heart? Should Cynthia have been fired and shamed publicly, or was measured discipline the better sermon? Should a billionaire be allowed to make amends with money when money is how he made the mess in the first place? Do you think that's fair? If it were you, what would you have done? Here's what I did, and you can argue with me in a minute. I didn't make a public spectacle of Cynthia. I moved her out of range, gave her work where she couldn't hurt anyone, and let restitution be a long road, not a press release. Some called it weak. I called it precise. We moved heaven and paperwork to make sure Mabel's guardianship and then our adoption were legal, clean, protective. Some called it sentimental. I called it structural love, the kind that holds even when the headlines die. We funded the clinic quietly. Yes, I know branding could have doubled donations, but not everything that heals needs your last name carved into it. And I learned to become a man Rachel could recount without flinching. Not just a provider with a nice car, but a father who shows up on parent-teacher night with patience and snacks and a smile that doesn't need caffeine to exist. I also learned that power is loud and kindness is stubborn. Power buys microphones. Kindness changes voices. Power fixes problems. Kindness repairs people. When the next Rachel walks barefoot into your life, and someone will, maybe not a child, maybe a coworker who's drowning quietly, maybe a stranger between the aisles of a pharmacy counting coins, you will be tempted to default to policy. I hope you remember a drawing in crayon, a flower, a child asking for work instead of pity, and a man who thought he was logical until love wrote him a new equation. Let me leave you with a handful of moments that still knock on my ribs when I least expect it. Rachel's first day at school, when she squeezed my hand and whispered, "What if they don't like me?" And I kneeled, so we were cheek to cheek, and said, "Then I will love you so loudly, they'll hear it down the hall and realize there's nothing left to decide." The afternoon, she came home furious because a classmate called her warehouse girl, and Mabel knelt and said, "Baby people will call you what they understand. You just keep being Rachel Williams and let them catch up." The night I woke to find Rachel asleep in the hallway because thunder scared her, and I laid down beside her on the carpet and counted between flashes until the storm learned our rhythm. Yeah, that happened. There's a photo on my desk now. Not the rooftop one. This one's cheap, printed at a place that still smells like ink and dust. It's me, Mabel, and Rachel in front of the clinic's new wing. No plaque with our names, just a painted mural of a small hand, giving a flower to a tall figure, the same crayon drawing, grown up. When I pass it, I never think, "Look what I built." I think, "Look what I got rescued into." So tell me straight, do you believe destiny brings families back together, or do we build our miracles one stubborn choice at a time? When truth can ruin a child, does the public's right to know outrank a child's right to heal, or is mercy the higher law? Should forgiveness come with conditions stamped in ink, or is it a door you either walk through or you don't? If it were you, what would you have done? If this story tugged at something you keep hidden under your careful schedule, I want you in this conversation. Drop your take in the comments. Agree, argue, complicate it. Tell me where I got it wrong. Tell me what you would have done differently. Tell me if you were ever the kid in the marble lobby or the adult behind the glass who finally opened the door. Like this, if you want more human stories in your feed, then outrage, share it with someone who needs a reminder that love still interrupts the program, and subscribe if you're here for the long, messy, hopeful versions of the truth. And before you go, call your mom if you can forgive yourself for the night you wish you could redo, pay a bill if you're able, sit with someone who's tired. And when a small hand reaches up toward yours, take it.